guys, welcome to another episode of Raising the Bar, and today's a special episode because it's the first live Raising the Bar that I've done, and I thought I'd bring in my friend Darren. He's been a good friend of mine, mentor, guru, all around like big brother, all around good guy. And I met Darren, was it 6 years ago, 7 years ago?
Don't even
Longer,
know now. Yeah,
long time ago. And I thought it would only be fair to bring Darren in to the first live studio Raising the Bar. And where do we start? Where do we start, mate?
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
Put you on the spot. 2020.
Yeah.
Can we start with this, and then we can go in? We can go into it. And then,
Yeah, of course we can. I mean,
give me your take on it. What do you think? Because we haven't actually spoken this year.
We haven't spoken at all this year. No. It's been a challenging year, a stretching year for everybody. I don't think it's been a disastrous year. Not at all. It's been testing and stretching, but there's been so much growth opportunity this yeyear. I think that if you've been able to take advantage of the opportunities, then the world is.
What opportunities can you see in this? Because it's just all doom and gloom to me. But
it depends on what you're looking at. Yeah, absolutely. So it depends on what you're looking at. That's the thing, because there is a contest for attention going on. There's a contest for awareness. Right. And what we have is, small, unimportant people with really narrow vision and, not much about them really, competing for the attention of many people when normally they wouldn't get that kind of attention. And that, I think, is affecting people's ability to use the opportunities I was talking about, which is to improve our relationships. It's to, there's been a real invitation into sovereignty, I think, this year. And by that, I mean, so when we look at the word corona, what is a corona? Well, the corona we get the word corona from the sun. And the sun is like the space around the sun, the area of influence around the sun. You could call it the aura of the sun.
Well, the crown, isn't it, as well?
The crown, the crown, or the aura of the sun. Yeah. And in a way, we've all been given that this year. You've been said, look, here is your space. Here is your field. Here is your corona, your space of influence around you, and you're just going to have to deal with it. And depending on your past choices, many people are sitting in worlds that they've not found very comfortable, but actually they're sitting in the world of the consequences of their choices. For some people, that is filled with mayhem and distress, and for others it's filled with improving connections, and it is a result of, sadly, it's choices that people have made, and I think there's been a real test this year as to who can handle their own space. That's the test. Can you handle your own headspace? Can you handle your own space? If you're left, you can't go anywhere. Can you cope? And it's really, there's real mental fortitude and integrity required to, first of all, be okay with what's happening, and then to be able to do something kind of measured and tempered and coherent in response, if a response is indeed needed.
Because it's funny, in January I remember writing a post saying 2020, the year where everything comes into vision, and then when all shit hit the fan, I went, actually scrap that. I said, actually it's not coming into vision at all, it's the opposite. But then when I actually thought about that, I thought, well, what if it is actually all coming into vision? And what that means is I kind of see it as that all the darkness of the planet or society is coming up to the surface like a detoxification process, and it's that those that can see it see it, and can actually see it for what it is and see that darkness, and then you can, like you're saying, choose your reality. You can choose your point of attention. And I think that is what 2020 now means for me.
Yes,
and
I'm very with that.
And I also think that partly the ability to see that darkness is also your ability to see darkness within yourself, I've noticed. Because the people that I know can kind of see the big chess moves that are going on at the moment, are that I know for a fact these are the people that have done a lot of that self-reflection work. They've been into the hell worlds of themselves and their own psyche, and therefore they're not frightened of holding the fear externally and seeing it externally. Whereas I think what's happening, people, they get a glimpse of this, it kind of triggers something inside them, and they sort of manifest a sort of a fairy tale reality to kind of like to not even look at that. And I think that's a simulacra of the fact that they're not willing to sort of embrace their own fear, I think. Because I don't know if you have any thought.
I mean that's I like that take. I have a further, for me, a little bit upstream perspective on why people have ended up like
that.
Because because what we're talking about here is we're not talking about stupid people. We're not talking about unintelligent, uneducated people. We're the opposite. And so we have to ask ourselves, why is it that seemingly intelligent people, seemingly reasonable people, simply are unable to appraise facts that get presented to them, and they're unable to come into a conversation at all? And there's two symptoms here. One is called, I think it's called the amygdala effect, and it is that fear of rejection by their in-group is so great that they daren't even look, because the fear of even to see one thing that might say that they may differ from the group that they rely on for all of the easy-oziness of their life. The danger of rejection from that group is so great that the person simply cannot even look. So that's the amygdala defense response that has been suggested by some people. I think there's even more blind spots at play than that. So one thing that I've noticed is we really notice a common thread of academic bullying, is what I see it as. Academic superiority, where there's a real sort of aloofness of the academic position, which most people in the academic world espouse the position you're talking about, which is this rose-tinted view that everything that's happening is benevolent and being done with the highest concern and well-being in mind. And like you're saying, part of it is they simply are not even owning their own shadow in where they play games, and therefore they can't see it in others. But there's another side to it, and I think it's particularly academic, which is, so when people are at university, you have the faculty who are visible, and the faculty are the ones who have strong opinions that the students can rail against or get behind, and they can campaign against faculty members and get them expunged or deplatformed and stuff like that. But behind the faculty you have the university administration, and the administration are the ones who keep everything going so everybody can continue their games. The students can keep partying and studying, and they can keep railing for and against professors and things like that. But it makes the admin themselves untouchable. They become untouchable because everybody is so supremely reliant on them, and they're so supremely invisible that, and therefore, as a result of the good time everybody's having, they're implicitly trusted. So what you have is an implicit trust in unseen authority, with the sort of visible authority being the one that you challenge and contest. And this is what we're seeing demonstrated in these people. They're reacting to politicians like they would to faculty. Yeah, I'm for you. Yeah, I'm against you. But really, to them, it is unthinkable, literally unthinkable, that anything involved in the larger administration behind the scenes couldn't be implicitly trustworthy. And yes.
So who are the admin bods of the...
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, in a way as well, though, I think that the thing we're dealing with there is there's a real lack of maturity into the real world of human dealings when we are living in a world of limited resource. We're living in a world of limited power to share. And there are a lot of sharks in the water. There are a lot of wolves and foxes out there. And what we have in these people, the ones who are completely entrusting of state and media authority, is we find that they don't believe in sharks or wolves, or if they do, they think, well, those people are easy to see. They're the drunks on the street on a Friday night. They're the thickos picking fights. They're the guys you find at the football stadium. They're not successful businessmen. They're not foxes and wolves and sharks. They couldn't have been so successful. Obviously, look, they're so good. They've made their money. Their business is successful. Well, there can't be anything dark or wrong about these people. No, the problem people are the thickos on the street. The problem people are the ones drinking on a Friday night and or whatever else. And again, I just think it's part of this almost like the same blind spot. There's a real blind spot at play.
You actually talked about this before. I remember you said there's a difference between bad and evil. And I think bad is up front. We can see it. And that's what you're talking about, right?
Exactly. And these people don't believe in evil.
But
they only
evil
believe in bad.
is that which is sort of under the radar. Exactly. It's covert, right?
Well,
overt.
More than that. So this distinction of bad and evil that we're talking about came from M. Scott Peck. Yeah. So a very famous psychiatrist who wrote a book about love that's very famous, and then a book about evil that's less famous. But he uses these books to make distinctions, make these distinctions. He's saying one of the problems we have in our world is we can't tell the difference between bad and evil. And when you live in a secular world, which we live in, people don't even believe in evil. They only see bad. And what M. Scott Peck reveals to us is that bad doesn't hide itself. Bad is on show. And when you catch a bad person, they own up because it's on show. Evil makes out that it's good. It's constantly concealing itself. It's constantly, and I mean constantly concealing itself. It's constantly saying it wasn't me. It's constantly saying the source is something else. It's constantly saying I'm doing this for the good, I'm doing this for the good. And in a way, without bringing religiosity into this, the word temptation is very interesting, because if something is bad, there's no temptation there. If somebody says to you, here's a brick with some iron filings sprinkled on top of it, do you want to eat it? There's no temptation there, is there? You know, the thing, what makes something tempting is that it looks good, it feels good, it might even be good. But one thing I've learned through life, through indulgence, is that not everything that feels good is good.
It's
all the time.
It's the Hansel and Gretel house, basically, isn't it?
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. Not everything that tastes good is good. Not everything that feels good is good. And this is, and it's through understanding that and learning that we can discover how evil moves in its masqueradings and in its pretenses to the good. And this is what M. Scott Peck lays out in People of the Lie. Because obviously what you find about evil is it's a constant lie with a smile on the face and a warm handshake saying I'm your friend, I'm your friend.
Yeah, it's the iron fist in a velvet glove.
Absolutely,
isn't it?
absolutely, and it's and it, you know, and it's really interesting. I remember some books I used to read when I was younger, and it was looking at the notion of evil, and it was interesting because it was looking at demons coming into this world, and it was saying that, you know, it was painting the picture of these low-level demons being the kind of thing that you would think is obvious, which is horns and obvious and musky and ugly and all the rest of it. But as these more senior and senior dark forces came through, they became more beautiful, more elegant, more graceful, more enticing, more magnetic, more interesting, you know. And that was the whole point, was they became tempting. You know, they became interesting. They became, what are they about, you know? But actually they said what they were doing was good, but when you looked at the effects of what they were doing, you found out the effects were not good. And that is when you start to deliver the metric as to whether you are dealing with evil, which is somebody pretending that they're being good but they're not and they know it, or kind of like bumbling mistakes. Because bumbling mistakes only happen a few times. When evil moves systematically to conceal itself and to continue the pretense of goodness. And you can start to follow threads like that have a particular flavour that really can show anybody with any sense the sort of difference between badness that's on show, that fills prisons all over the place and is, you know, abuse houses are full of, and evil, which is, you know, that deal that's too good to be true. You know,
looks good on the surface. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's such a nice shiny smile.
Yeah.
Oh, you seem so friendly.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you hear of all these old people that have been shafted over their savings and stuff like that, you know, because these people were not bad people, they were evil.
Yeah, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. And I think that's what suckers so many people in, because it taps into people's willingness to want to improve the world. That it taps into their compassion. It weaponises compassion.
It does weaponise it.
And so... you know, when people hear the words climate change, but everyone has to feel as though they have to be behind it without having that discernment to be able to see the evil behind it and see the agendas behind that. Anything that looks kind of soft and fluffy and cuddly on the surface, which is meant to be good for the planet, and then using certain words like equality. Who's going to be against equality? You against equality? Compassion, empathy, you know, diversity. These are all weaponized, compassionate, seemingly feminine concepts, right? Who'd be against the lovely sacred feminine? That's the surface, isn't it? That's the wicked witch, isn't it? But behind that's the kind of the loving so window like, dressing front window, isn't
that's it? It's kind of like you know, if we're looking at archetypes here, this is the archetype of the you know, the Shadow Queen from like Snow White or from or similar stories, which is to the world and the public she's the beatific queen, but behind the scenes she's plotting and campaigning against everybody because of her bitterness and resentment about a lost power that isn't true, you know, about a slight that never happened, you know.
So who is and she's offering the apple, and we're kind of seeing that now, I guess. But who would you say are the main wicked witches right now? Should we go there?
Oh, we can go there if you like. I mean, Yeah.
Too explosive?
Well, it's not that it's too explosive at all. It's too obvious. Okay. It's too obvious, and people have heard it already. And let's look at an annoying word that's bandied around a lot, and that's the word conspiracy.
Yeah.
Can't stand that word because it implies something hidden, and what we're dealing with is stuff which isn't hidden. But what we are dealing with is when we bring together the facts that would stitch together a more honest opinion of the names that we might mention in a few minutes. The people we were talking about earlier are unwilling to look, and they call conspiracy when it's like, you're not looking at what I'm talking to you about.
They don't. That's the thing.
You're not looking at the fact that I'm showing you this person's past. I'm showing what this person has done. I'm showing you their parents. I'm showing you the context they grew up in. I'm showing you the people they hung out with and what those people did and how they thought, and how this person is behaving is in line with that, which isn't in line with the story that they're telling. But if people can't hear that, then it's wasted breath.
Yeah, they're not willing to listen. Even.
No,
that's the thing.
No, they're not even willing to look, and it's then like someone you end up in a case of these are the pointless conversations at that point. But obviously the names in question are obviously people that are all profiting massively from the current situation,
which they all are.
They all are massive. They've all doubled their money this year.
Mm.
Literally doubled their money. Some of these mega billionaires that we're talking about, and they don't need names because everybody knows the names that we're talking about.
Yeah. But then again, they'll say, but they've got enough money. that's. Can you believe that? That's what they say. They say, but they've got enough money. Why would they want any more money?
I know.
It's like as if these people haven't trodden on a few eggshells to get there.
Yes,
cracked
again,
a few eggs to get
it's
there.
a lack of understanding of humans.
Yeah, the psyche.
Yes,
psyche.
exactly.
Yes.
These are people who have never faced the edge. They're people that have never really faced the night. They've never faced the void. They've never, faced the whispers and the invitations of the dark. Or seen people who have given over to that. And when you've got people who have essentially never left mum's kitchen their whole lives, they're like, what do you mean? There's no monsters out there, there's no bears out there, there's no darkness out there, there's nothing out there. It's like, what are you talking about? You've never left the kitchen. You've never left the house. I do this with people all the time when we're doing the rites of passage with men over what people think is the real world. And there's so many people that think this is the real world, walls and screens and all the rest of it. And it's like, it's not. This is not the real world. These are ancestral gifts to keep the weather off you, so that you can muse other things. These are innovations of our ancestors. This is essentially Plato's cave. So we're in Plato's cave. So Plato's allegory of the cave is that there's these people in a cave and they're seeing dancing shadows, and they think the dancing shadows is the real world, when it's like, no, those are the shadows of the world. The world's over there. And that's the same here, where people are brought up in the notion that the car and the house and the school and the business and the buildings and the road are the real world. And it's like, they're not. They're the cave that keeps you sheltered and keeps the elements at bay, so that you can have deep philosophical musings, so that you can ponder things that your ancestors couldn't. But it is not the world. And if you've never been outside of that, if you've never been in the sort of, and I'm just talking about the elements, I'm just talking about being in nature, but being in it without the gifts of the ancestors, without your waterproofs, being in it to know what you are as a mammal in the world, to say, without the gifts of my ancestors' technology and ingenuity, the truth of my existence in the world is this bare-assed vulnerable being that will die of exposure in a few days, unless I take on the gifts of my ancestors. These are not my power. And people claim it as if it's their power. It's like, it's not your power. It's been given to you so you can do something else. So we've got these people that think these trappings of gifts from ancestors, buildings and clothes and all the rest of it, and they think it's the real world. And it's like, it's not. You have never been in the real world. You don't even know your own limitations in that respect. So what can you tell me about facing the night? You're too scared to go out when the street lights are off. What do you know about standing watch so that others can party into inebriation because you have got the darkness covered so that nothing will come and take them in the night? People have forgotten that truth because somebody has always been on watch, even though they're not aware of it. And these kind of comforts are what prevent the opinions of these people being reliable. It's like, actually, I can't listen to you because you've literally lived on the sofa your whole life. You've never even faced the dark. You don't even know what lives out there. How can I listen to your opinion on the motives of these individuals who clearly have a bit of the whiff of the dark about them? You know, and if you don't even know the dark in yourself, how can you catch the whiff on somebody else?
Exactly.
You know?
I definitely see that. I don't, talking about the Plato's cave.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the Plato's cave, right? The Black Mirror. The Black Mirrors.
Absolutely.
Right?
This is the real Illuminati, which is the Illuminators. They make dancing lights of seeming interest appear in a grey-black nothingness.
Yeah. It's almost as if there's a digitised version of reality being like a mirror world being created, effectively.
Yes.
And this Black Mirror, I was thinking about this. Right, so you have people are now putting so much attention, their point of attention, into the Black Mirror. Yeah. Now, if you think about, we mentioned the Wicked Witch. Yeah. She was looking into a black mirror. Yeah. Who's the fairest of them all? Yes. She's looking into a black mirror. Yeah. And then you have like the bite from the apple. Well, what do we see on the back of the black mirror? We see a bite from the apple. Yeah. There's this. I'm noticing these kind of almost like the fairy tales come full circle, effectively, and we're actually seeing it now. Yes. And I'm wondering whether actually this happens now, and then it kind of it decomposes into the history books, into life's history books, and then it sort of maybe there's remnants of it that remind us of the time before, and it kind of maybe there's something cyclical there. But there's a throwback to that somehow in fairy tales about the Black Mirrors.
Less even a throwback, more about how, these are aspects of the human psyche and archetypes that we have to face. So they repeat because they're aspects. And there's a great quote in Michael Meade book called The Waters of Life and the Tempering and Initiation of Men. And it's a quote about, I can't remember it properly, but it's about myth and fairy tale. And it's basically saying that in the world of society, myth and fairy tale is the place for children, but in the psyche of the mature individual, it is in fact, I can't remember what it is. It's something like how myth and fairy tale doesn't actually, you don't really get it until much later in life, basically. And the implication is that it is very real, and it is about understanding the human psyche, but it is only the mature mind and awareness that can really embrace the truths that can be found in there. Because we have to ask ourselves as well, why have these stayed with us? Why have they stayed with us? We have very few songs of our people that we remember, but these tales stay with us because there are powerful social archetypes in there, like this kind of shadow queen that we're talking about, maybe they're so rules the world at the moment.
They're so intrinsically connected to the human psyche that they just have to keep showing up throughout the history of time.
Well, not only that, I mean, I use them all the time with my clients. Where I do mentoring and gender work, and one of the things I'm doing with people is I'll say, I'll get them to do a fairy tale identification, because lots of people are looking for, when they come to me, they've become a bit shut down to life. They're creative, ingenious, joyful, aspirational, part of self that wants to be here isn't here, and they're like, well, where is it? And I said, well, we're going to have to track it down. It's lost in the enchanted forest. And they'll be like, what are you on about? And I say, well, the enchanted forest is, the enchanted forest between the legs that grows in the child, that where things poke and prod and push here and not always where you like, or you might get all gobbled up. And this is really, and what I've found through fairy tale is that we find aspects of the human psyche. So I'll say to my clients that, it's like all of us have made a contract with the Lord of the Forest, and some people will go in, smoke his herbs to forget or to soothe pain. Others will go in, make drinks from his berries to forget or soothe pain. Others will inject his berries to soothe pain. Whatever contracts they've got with the Lord of the Forest, but it's to forget and to soothe pain. And what we find then is it goes deeper, because then it's like, well, okay, some of you have become the Sleeping Beauty, who protect yourself with a wall of thorns and are just waiting for that kiss, and then, now I'll show up. You have made it through the thorns, and I will turn up for you, young man, thanks. Or the Rapunzel, who it's like, no, I'm not coming out, not until the right words are said, and then, he said the right words, you get the resplendent and radiant me, you lucky thing. And it's interesting to see that for most clients of mine, they identify with one fairy tale more than the others, and it's like, because that's where yours is. So what game are you playing with holding yourself from life through this behaviour that we can see mapped perfectly in these tales from childhood? So it becomes an adult tool for hunting the past self and tracking down parts of self, because the Hansel and Gretel story feeds perfectly into that. So I use that for helping people heal trauma. So say to them that the trauma points in their life that they remember and they come to work on are actually gold, because they're the breadcrumb trails of memory into times that we had otherwise forgotten. So actually what happens is trauma allows us to anchor and get back the awareness that we had at that time if we can process the trauma. But the trauma itself becomes these breadcrumb trails like we see in Hansel and Gretel, and we can find our way back out the forest that way. So the list goes on of how we can use these tales as, deep tools of self-analysis and self-help, really.
You also had the who's the fairest of them all? Who's the fairest of them all? Talking into that black
mirror on the wall.
And you see that on social media where people pay less attention to their real self. Yeah. The real solar self, let's call it the solar self, and more interested in the lunar self, which is the reflection of themselves.
That's right.
So I've seen this where people have been sat in the same room with another person, a stranger, not even made eye contact, not talked to each other, yet they've been messaging each other on a dating app, not knowing that they're in the same room together, and being all excited to see the profile picture. They're interacting digitally with each other, but they're actually in the same room anyway, and not even acknowledging each other. It was in a hostel, basically. And when I heard that story, it was frightening to me, you know. And then the fact they use all these filters and more concerned about making themselves look like they've got loads of friends, and they're more good looking and beautiful than their friends. This is the who's the fairest of them all on the wall, you know. And so I just wanted to add that in. I'm definitely seeing a lot of that fairy tale symbolism re-emerging in today's times.
It's because it's on show. That's the thing. These are the currents that are at play. And you've now got the breadth of vision to be able to apprehend that, you see, and to comprehend that. And it's a level of pattern recognition that a lot of people just don't have.
People really don't care about themselves in the now. They're more concerned about how they're coming across through a screen, through a mirror.
Do you know what has really summed that up for me? That I mean, no offence to anybody, by the way. I don't mean any offence to anybody with this, though. The thing that says that and symbolises that more than anything is the eyebrows thing.
Oh, what do you mean?
The girls and their eyebrows in recent years.
Drawing them on.
Shaving
them off, then drawing them on.
And then drawing on these big black things because of how it looks on the screen, not how it looks in person. Because how it looks in person compared to how it looks on the screen.
Exactly.
Well, just leave it at that. But to me, the eyebrows sum it up. It's all there, man. I
saw a really good post. This girl, she posted on Twitter. She says, "Why is it guys watch 90 minutes of a football match and then watch the highlights an hour later?" And some guy underneath wrote, "Why do girls shave their eyebrows off and draw them back on 2 minutes later?"
And this is related to exactly that. And do you know what it is? It's lunacy.
Lunacy, that's the lunar world. That's the
lunar world,
world rather than
now,
the real world.
Here's the thing, I mean, if we want to talk about it, I don't know if we talked about it before, but this lunacy, that is the absolute crux of feminism. Because it's about, So you're like, what? Where? We weren't going to do feminism today. We're not doing feminism today, but it's where we are. So it's the crux of it, because what happened, I mean, it maybe happened about 10,000 years ago, but it maybe happened more recently than that. But what happened is the symbol of the feminine changed from being the abundant and generous, ever-giving earth that is in a relationship with the sun, to the moon, which is a barren rock that has no light of its own except the light of the sun. And that's that feminist idea that I've got nothing unless it's male. Men have got all the power, and unless I've got men's power too, then I have nothing, because I have nothing. That's lunacy of a woman disconnected from the native power of her femininity and only sees the unshowness of male power, solar light, as being the thing of value. So that's what she wants. That is the reflection of solar light off the moon. That is the lunacy. That's the beginning, upstream point of what you were talking about there with the sort of the lunar effect that we see in the world now. But lunacy is exactly what it is.
Well, that's for lunacy. That makes perfect sense.
That's exactly what it is. It's total lunacy.
Yeah.
But it is exactly what you're saying, which is it's not the solar self. It's not the one that emits goodwill and knows its place in the scheme of things. Instead, it's a barren rock that doesn't turn, isn't in relationship with stuff, and is only reflecting light. It doesn't have any light of its own.
That's right.
That's feminism.
And they also have completely removed the idea of any nature, like biology.
Of course, there's no.
That's the human.
Exactly,
that's Mother Earth,
there's
isn't
a war. Exactly, there's a war on the fact. There's a war on.
Yeah.
And in fact, I can't remember who it was, but somebody, I think it was Warren Farrell or somebody like that, it might have been, who called feminism a war on heaven. It was a war against God.
Nature,
because
heaven.
It was saying, I don't want to be the one that carries children. That's a burden, not freedom. That's not a gift. That's not a blessing. Working for myself and getting a salary is a blessing. That's freedom. That's the gift. And that's lunacy.
Yeah. And I actually had this, this was a big insight for me, but it kind of made sense in how they think. They see a human life inside them, inside the womb, as a bundle of cells, unviable. It's not a living,
a parasite.
Yeah, a parasite. Even though a parasite eats off something else to the detriment of something else, and that's not what a baby does. Yeah. But I've now worked out why they're so easy to just terminate a life within themselves, and that's because they've removed the idea of there being a biological component to life, and it's all about social constructionism. So in other words, we would say that we're a human being first, and then we're a citizen, which is our interface with society. Because they don't have the biological component,
I agree.
They only see a human being or a person as when it's interfacing with society. So that means only when it's come out and interfacing as a person or a citizen is it actually a life. Whereas we'd see a life from the biology from conception, let's say, they would see it as only when it's has a viable function in with other people.
I've got a name for that. I call that. That to me is the real pandemic, and it is disembodiment.
Is that disembodiment?
That's disembodiment. It's mental disembodiment. It's people disconnected from what it really feels like to be in their body. It's a real problem. It's a real symptom. That's why people make decisions that are so harmful to their own emotions and psyche, and end up paying massive downstream consequences further down the line in misery and suffering, because they're so disconnected from natural needs rather than disembodied wants.
Is this also to do with the fact that the woman has now taken on the male part of her psyche in terms of not totally embracing the internalisation of
it's just an imbalance, and we're dealing with an imbalance in both the sexes. We've got men that are hiding in the feminine, we've got all these femi-men around, and then we've got women that are hiding in the masculine, all these masculine women, and when we look at them all when they're middle-aged, they're miserable, or they're not, they're drinking loads of wine and telling themselves that they're not, but anyway, we weren't here to talk about them. That was lunacy, a bit of lunacy, a bit of digression on lunacy. Let's get back on topic. In there. Onto the.
Let's talk about
lockdown
2020. The effects of what's been happening.
Boom. Okay.
I mean, where can we could start from any point around this. But
what about what's it all about? Because really,
what is it all about?
To me, the thing that determines how well you're going to do getting through this. Anyone, and what's going to determine whether you feel good or not during the process of it is the story you tell yourself about what's happening, what is happening and why. And if you listen to the media, then you're going to end up unhappy, because we keep getting this promise of normal's just around the corner, back to normal's just around the corner, but that's not the real story, as you know, and as so many others know. There's another story at play here, and a story that's been told about in different ways. But as you know, the problem we have is people not believing in a motive as to why somebody would want to do that, and that is, why would somebody want to lock up half the world for no reason, or seemingly no reason, or minimal reason? Why would they? And it's like, well, because they're scared. That's why, and because they have concerns. And if we look at the people who are really involved at a high level of wanting these lockdowns to continue and wanting a tighter controlled society, all of these people are well-known globalists. So globalists, what we mean by globalist is people that believe that that a unified globe is superior. Now, I agree with them, but they believe a unified globe with them at the top making the decisions and nobody else really having an influence. That I don't agree with. So that's who we're talking about. So we're talking about people like Bill Gates is a globalist, Tony Blair is a globalist. There are plenty of senior Jews who are globalists. We've got Fauci and all these very famous people who are talking about this all being a good thing, despite the fact that there's plenty of data that says we don't need to be doing this at all. And all of these people are set to profit massively from this in one way or another. But why are they doing it? Why? Well, if we look at Bill Gates' history, for starters, because he's a big agent here. He's not the only one, because we've got blooming Great Reset man,
Klaus Schwab.
Good old Klaus.
Yeah, and he's seen his
Klaus in his pompous fourth revolution. The fourth revolution. I think I was the first to use the word fourth revolution. I even wrote a book about it. We know Klaus. It's your idea.
Yeah. He's dressed like Ming the Merciless.
And no, he's so funny because he's got this veiled pomposity that's so on show. So Bill is an interesting character because there's so many people that think, well, he's Mr. Windows, he's Mr. Philanthropy, what can he do wrong? And it's like, have you looked at his history? Have you looked at how he behaved during the monopoly crisis with, I think it was Netscape or something like that? He behaved like a pretty twisted young man then, and okay, he can change, but if we look at his background, we look at who his father was and what his father did, we find that his father was a lawyer to the Rockefellers, and was deeply involved in things like Planned Parenthood at its outset. He was a well-known eugenicist, which, for those that don't know what it means that people that think that if you're poor, then you probably shouldn't be on the planet because it means that you're not successful genetically because you're not successful financially, you know. This was his dad. He grew up in these conversations. He grew up around these people, hearing the concerns of people who thought the world was overpopulated, that we need to be concerned about bugs. You know, we've got to worry about these things, we've got to worry about those things. And you can see that in him. The guy is afraid of bugs. All right, Bill, you're afraid of bugs. Stay at home, mate. The rest of us aren't. You're afraid of bugs. You're like, oh, I don't want people coughing on me. I won't wear a mask and stay at home, mate. You know, he's clearly afraid of that. He'd been brought up with this notion that images of busy cities means the whole world has too many people in it. It's like, no, you're looking at a city, mate. There's billions of acres of unpopulated stuff out there because everyone's come to live in the city. It doesn't mean there's too many people overall. We might have a resource distribution issue. Mr. $100 billion in the bank, that's a resource that needs distributed. For example, we might have resource distribution issues, but the population question is not as clean-cut as people make out. However, folk who love statistics, Bill loves the statistics, he's well known of, you know, even recommending the book How to Lie with Statistics. He recommended you read it. He recommended you read the book How to Lie with Statistics, people. That is, you know, this is Bond villainy on a level that's just almost like glorious. You know, it's a glorious.
Well, it's that evil Bond villain.
Yeah,
that people don't know.
It is, exactly.
It's not the bad Bond villain. It's the evil one.
Hollywood has taken over the media and the world. It's like we now have in fact, it's Bollywood. We've got a Bollywood narrative, the songs basically, and the dances, absolutely taking over global politics and all the rest of it through the machinations of these individuals who it's been known for years that they wanted this kind of thing because they profit massively from it. But let's look at why these lockdowns are happening. So the reason I'm mentioning Bill, and there's a few others there, is because there are two major issues being addressed with these lockdowns. One of them is population, because when you mask people, they can't smile across a crowded room anymore. When you stop them socialising at bars, they don't have those incidents where they can accidentally, you know, find someone they might fall in love with. When they don't have the freedom to socialise and you can't go into people's homes, you can't copulate and breed. For people that are against the population agenda, this is perfect. It's the perfect. And when you have children that get brought up thinking that, no, I can't take my mask off and you have to stay away, then 2 meters is actually, and I do this with people all the time in the work, and we've done it together before, and that is when you get within 2 meters is when you begin to feel somebody. You begin to feel someone within about 2 meters. So we're being told to stand at the distance where you don't feel connected to somebody. And I've seen this happen in schools where you've got little kids, you know, and the teachers that are doing this are just so disembodied, it's terrifying to me. But because they believe all this narrative about the scary bug, the scary bug, there's children in distress there, and you've got these adults standing a few meters away going, it'll be all right, you'll be all right, you got to stand in, you stay in your box, it'll be okay.
Stay in your little cage.
It's like a pre-rational human being does not understand that. They only understand connection and proximity. When you remove them from that, for no good reason. I mean, what we are looking at here is mental health disorders in the future of an order that we have never seen. I mean, we're talking, from my point of view, if this is allowed to continue, we're talking Clockwork Orange levels of pathology because of people's disconnection from sensuality in a healthy way, so that their only window to access sensuality is through violation and invasion, because everything else has been said to be deemed to be, oh, I'll get something from you, I can't do that. So I'm not so worried about the adults, it's the kids that are growing up with this.
The new generation.
Oh my goodness, the ones that you see leaders, in the pictures that are sitting in boxes in school.
I know.
Honestly, the people that are doing that, the teachers, the psychologists, everybody, crimes against humanity. You're absolute abomination of child abusers. Every one of you should be ashamed of yourselves. Absolutely ashamed of yourselves for doing that to little children. When you look at the statistics for something where they're not even at risk.
They're not even
they're
at
not
risk.
A danger.
They're not
a danger to anyone. It's pure psychological abuse because of the belief in authority. The belief in authority. And so population is one of the things. This is so much about population to me. But the other one it is climate change, which is, of course, if people are... So we're seeing reduced travel signs everywhere, essential travel only. This is of great benefit to the people who are massively concerned about climate change being caused by carbon emissions. That's a downstream concern, if you ask me, as to whether climate change and the weather has got anything to do with carbon or not. But it doesn't matter. For these people, they deeply believe it. They, just like Bill deeply believes in there being too many people, and he's deeply afraid of bugs. These people deeply believe this issue that they've only got 10 years left. So to them, locking up half the world to save the planet is a worthy enough motive for all the suffering that's happening in their world.
Do they really fear carbon, do you think, carbon dioxide, or do you think they're using that as a guise to control society?
We need to see who we're talking about here, because it depends on which level you're looking at. So at the highest level, I don't think anybody cares. I don't think they care at all. I think we're dealing with evil, people that pretend to be good when they're not. But further downstream, to be able to win over the number of people you need on site to pull off a coup of this order, those people, I think they are genuinely concerned, and they genuinely think that this is a means that will save them, literally save them.
Yeah,
they believe it will save them.
I know friends that say, "Oh, it's so great that this has happened because this is nature's autocorrect."
Exactly.
They actually think that that's the case. And when you say actually there could be an agenda behind this, they call you the tinfoil hat wearing buffoon. Yet they're wearing the tinfoil hat mask. It's just a complete topsy-turvy kind of way of looking at it,
Almost.
I am walking as I was, exactly like I was last year. You're coming in with your face diaper on, like the new tinfoil hat, and then you're pointing the fingers at me saying I'm the kind of abstraction. It's perverse, isn't it?
It is. It's twisted. It's really, really twisted. I mean, and that's the thing, though, is that, as you and I know from the gender work, that's been twisted and on its head for decades. That's just been lie after lie after lie after lie. This is no different. It's just lie after lie after lie. And if people have accepted these lies, and if they've built their world of truth out of lies, and then are living within that, this is what you get. What you get is people that think this is, this is for the good, when really the evidence on the table is it doesn't seem to be. I mean, because the difficult point here is in terms of, because the thing I want to steer away from is the idea of a homogenous evil entity that is like a unified field of activity. Because when we start to do that, we start to create an unbeatable opponent, an unassailable opponent. We start to create something that's unstoppable, and it's not true. There's a level of organic forces here at play. So what I mean by organic is, that they've arisen almost naturally. So Bill has got to his power because he was involved in a product that lots of people bought. So he's risen to the top of this particular pond as a result of people's choices. So there's an organicness there. Similarly, despite the fact his dad and the Rockefellers gave him a foot up, but let's forget about that. It's funny, that was a good coup, how he was painted as being this whiz kid when really he wasn't. His family put him there. Exactly. But he's not the only player here. There are other players. Tony's a well-known globalist. Tony's afraid of instability in the Middle East. That's why he wants a one world government. He came out 2 days after lockdown in March. Him and Gordon Brown both came out saying we need a one world government to handle this crisis.
He admitted it.
And he's already said I've got a team. I've got 25 teams of people ready to help governments reform to meet this crisis. So then it's like, well, that means you've got a team, 25 people that are reforming 25 governments to the same model. which then means you're preparing them for a single overarching structure. You had that ready, Tony. That was ready 2 days after lockdown. That was ready to go.
Exactly.
You know, that was a fast response, wasn't it? So there's clearly some planning at play here by people with separate interests who are acting independently. You know, you've got Klaus with his forced revolution. You know, these are like techno barons.
Yeah.
You know, they're techno barons who are agreeing to work on certain things together, but they have their own interests as well. And I think when we break up the issue into individuals with overlapping and competing interests, we can start to see that actually there's something to play in here. There's something to play with. This isn't over, and if we can see it in this way, we can get in as players, and then we can start to bring some change. But as long as it's this homogenous entity that the only thing you can do is protest and rant about it, then there's just no chance. There was something else I wanted to say about that, because and the thing is, I don't want to say there isn't some homogenous evil entity, because I don't know. Yeah. You know, I really don't know. But all I know is if there is, I can't do anything about that. But when I break down this impression of an unassailable global wealthy elite that just have their secret meetings that you can't get into, that all that does is make me feel powerless. That's hopelessness right there. Whereas when I'm like, well, he likes this and that, and he got together with him because he likes that, they just made a deal on this. Actually, they're not friends. You know, and actually they have interests where they're competing with each other. So this is, to me, what I see when I talk like that is, it's when we start to get into having some class about this. And you've got some class, and when you look at what happens in class situations, you've got people turning up and having a lovely dinner together while they're shaking hands and all the rest of it. Well, his crew is trying to take out your business and his crew is trying to kill your family, but you're still having a nice warm shaky smile and sharing hors d'oeuvres talking about business, you know. That's the kind of class required here to understand what is going on and how to tackle it with some level of personal, individual empowerment. And
a lot of these, they don't even hide it though. That's the thing I've noticed. It's hidden in plain sight. That is the thing. That's what I've noticed, because I remember when I originally started like looking into all this stuff, I had this firewall up in my line of inquiry, which was, well, I don't have to worry about this because I know there's like an army of journalists and, you know, administrators and government and politicians that are the buffer for that evil to reach me. Yeah. So I kind of relaxed. Yes. Then when I started to investigate, actually they're actually part of that controlled media.
Exactly.
And then I start to go, it's up to me now to be my own. It's up to, I have to take responsibility now.
That's right.
And that was like that was the switch in me where I went, actually, I'm seeing the world totally differently. I'm not going to rely on anyone else to have my back. I've got to be the one that's actually, you know, looking out for myself and actually really using my discernment here. Yeah. That is the difference between where I am now and where I was like 15 years ago. And I think people are still in that thing about, people have got my back. I trust the government. They're going to look after me. You know, the journalists are going to do honest journalism. Why wouldn't they? The BBC, we fund the BBC. They wouldn't do any harm for us. That was the big wake up call for me. You know. I don't know if there's a segue there, but I also wanted to say that the masks, let's say, it's a commodification of the agenda itself. So the way to kind of, I feel, solidify into human consciousness so that everyone's sort of taking on that role is to wear the agenda. You know what I mean? Yeah. To clap it into existence at 7 p.m. every Wednesday, whatever it is. You know, for the NHS. And you know, the covering of the mouth. It's like no talking, no communication. And then also we had simultaneously the Black Lives Matter, the blackout. So I almost feel it's so. The no speaking, no looking. It's almost like on some level, it's like a complete shutting down of our ability to communicate as humans, as people. Because as strategists, those players know fine well that what's going to happen when you try and lock everybody up is people are going to gather and they are going to try and counter your manoeuvres. So what you do is you stop their ability to gather so that they cannot rebel and they cannot plan and they cannot strategize as to how to counter your moves. Because really, it's really not personal what's happening. You know, yes, there's people suffering and DVs increase, child abuse increase, suicide, depression, all this. None of that was the objective here, if you ask me. That is, they don't. These people are so psychopathic; they don't even care about that. What we're dealing with is, I like to look at it as like vessels in the ocean, and what we've got is these are big boats that are turning. They're making a move. We're in dinghies bobbing around. If we happen to get swamped when they turn, they're just like, sorry, man, you get swamped. I'm just turning.
sorry, I don't even know who you are. I don't care. I'm just turning. I've got a plan. I'm going that way. You know. Similarly, if I survive, they're like, oh, you survived. I don't care. I'm turning. I'm going that way. They don't care if you survive or if you don't. They're not interested. They're just interested in their manoeuvre. And again, when you know, so similarly, you mentioned the masks there, and yeah, there could be all those sort of undercurrents within it. But on the face of it, what we're looking at is massive intervention in social transactions that involve cash transactions that they profit from, and they're what I call microtransactions. So I first saw this move really being played when the coup happened over water at airports. So what we have is, this is the most everyday thing in the world. There is nothing more ubiquitous than a glass of water. Everybody needs it every single day. It's the most everyday thing in the world. To make this an object of fear, to make this an object of saying, I can't come through here with that, that could be a bomb, we can't have that. That is a coup of astronomical proportions on the human psyche, that on this side of the barrier, you can drink all your water, it's like, you can't come through here with that. Once it crosses this threshold, that can't come here. You have to buy the one that's on this side. I'm sorry. I don't care that it's sealed. I don't care that you're going to drink it in front of me. You can't carry it past this line. That's the rule. You have to buy the water on this side at £2 instead of £1, and you have to buy the bag for 50p to put your stuff in. And if your stuff is too big, you've got to buy the new special sizes that have been made for travel. You must buy them because they're the only ones you can carry. And what we have is a whole new set of microtransactions that didn't exist before. What you've got is, you've got an extra creaming off a person's normal daily activity, which is, I'm going on holiday, I've got a drink with me, I'm just going to the airport, no bother, bum 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 bum, can't go past, can't, oh, and then what, £2, 50p, all these little pounds here, oh, I've then spent an extra tenner. And it's like, alright, a tenner, fair enough. But it's like a ransom tax. It's your pockets getting rifled going through somewhere on a microtransaction that, okay, your little £10 divided up amongst all that doesn't add up to much. But when you're looking at that happening to every single customer, every single person getting on a plane, somebody is making billions. And what you find is, what around all the airports, we found the same branding associated with these stations that were offering the bags, these transparent bags, and the you know, all the rest of it. There was in this very distinct black and white branding. We saw it all over the place, and I've seen the same branding used for certain other odd microtransactions. What we are seeing here now with this is that to the nth degree, to a level that we've never seen, which is making everybody's microtransaction of a social interaction a visit to the surgical theatre. This is, so when we are looking at the movement of capitalism and as the Industrial Revolution version, crony capitalism, so the Industrial Revolution version, which is saying, where can I make everybody a customer? Where can I make everybody need my stuff? Shoes, great, everybody needs shoes. Trousers, everybody needs trousers, great, all the rest of it, wonderful. And science has been applying itself into all these areas and saying, how can I improve this? How can I innovate this? And what we've seen with the movement of science over the last 100 years is it insert itself into areas of life where it wouldn't normally be, like food. So food science has grown massively since the Victorian era. Before the Victorian era, there wasn't a lot of food science. Since then, we've got all sorts of processed chemical components that make up food, because science got in there because there's a profit thing. And so when we look at the movement of that across the 20th century, we've seen that it's inserted itself into every area of life. The marketplace is saturated. To innovate in this marketplace to generate large profits is very difficult, because innovation is so saturated. The best you can do is iterative improvements, which is what we're seeing with the phones. We're not seeing any new radical breakthroughs. We're seeing these micro-iterative improvements to get you to transact again. So what's happened here with the pharma lot and Gavi and Bill and all their buddies is that they have managed this incredible coup of saying all this stuff that we used to only be able to sell to hospitals, everybody is our customer. And not only that, because we are using the governments to enforce this, even if the individuals won't buy it, even if we can't make the individuals buy masks at £1 each now, £1 each for a throwaway mask, even if we can't make them buy it, we can make the businesses have to offer it. We can make the businesses have to buy sanitizer. They must offer every single visitor a mask. So if you are a sales rep and you visit 5 places that day, you will be offered 5 masks. The number of microtransactions that have been generated in between normal humans that these individuals profit from, fraction of a penny at a time, granted, but when you times that by 10 billion, when you times that by 100 billion, when you times that by everybody what's made a mask in the shop and then throw it away afterwards, every business must offer hand sanitizer. Every single business. All of a sudden, the marketplace for those perspex sales, tape sales, all of those, if we have a look at the people who are buying shares in perspex companies and tape companies and all the rest of it, we'll see who really did well this year. I mean, there was one hedge fund guy, I don't know what he was invested in, but in the first month of the lockdown, his fund he was playing with 7 billion fund, in the first month of lockdown in March, his grew 4,000%. 4,000%. That is an astronomical number for a fund worth 7 billion to go 4,000. And I was like, with some of that in perspex, with some of that in tape, with some of that in masks or PPE gloves, which used to be cheap and are now 3 times the price, and everybody's been told to wear them. I mean, this and what makes it so insidious is that it's for nothing. It's not because they have any interest in anything other than the 0.002% profit on a mask times 10 billion in a day, making the bottom line look like X amount. It's like happy days. I don't care about the suffering that people go through having to find a mask and rooting around in their bags and pausing to do that and stopping before this and giving their kids into trouble there and all this and telling them not to touch that there. They don't care about any of that.
Do you think it's purely from a monetary gain? Is it not also from the social engineering side?
Oh yeah, well they've already covered that.
Yeah,
social engineering is the population control side. That's what I mean. There's many threads here of competing and overlapping interests. But that's what I mean. It's not a homogenous thing.
Yeah, it's
a
lot
individual. Yeah, exactly. And when you break it up like that, you can do something about it. You can't do anything about it when it's a homogenous, dark forces, global elite. You're fucked. What can you do?
Yeah, you have to
nothing.
Look at all the
You're hopeless, helpless.
Yeah.
When you break it down, it's like individuals. Yeah. I'm an individual. Oh, you're an individual with some clout. Fair enough. All right, fair enough. But you're still just an individual. Because it's
not just depopulation, it's also the control of people as well. Yeah. And that must come from a massive amount of insecurity, from these people at the very top, I guess, because their biggest fear is effectively people, family, individual spirit, the wildness of the human man, that kind of stuff. So that needs to sort of be shaped out. So what we're seeing is it's like the atomization of society, right?
Yes, absolutely. And this has been beginning for over a century. It's been going on for centuries. I mean, Century of the Self covered exactly what you're talking about there, which was there are forces that move through humans that if you wish to maintain a state of control over them, that you're going to have to do something about those forces, because otherwise they're going to come out and they're going to destabilize your state, because that's what they do.
It's like removing all the humanity out of everyone. Family, touch, laughter, spirit,
absolutely.
Dancing, singing. You can't dance and sing now.
Absolutely.
You can't smile at someone.
So that bit to me is we've got to kind of understand the people who are making these decisions for that in terms of an aspect of their psyche, and what we're dealing with. So to me, there's two forks happened this year. One of them is the fear-love fork. People that are coming from fear and people that are coming from love. We've got these people. Really, most of the pro-control people, the people who believe that this is all appropriate and that we should do this and the government needs to do more and all the rest of it, they're all coming from fear. They're afraid of the bug. They're afraid of so much, clearly, because the facts of how not scary the bug is haven't got through to them. So there's fear there. That's what it is, But there's another fork that's more telling to me, and it seems to me that there's really 2 types of human revealing themselves. So they are what I call techno-humans and the natural humans. And the techno-humans are the ones who do spend most of their times in the cave, Plato's cave, in the tech world, and they believe that they believe in technical solutions over natural solutions. They just believe it's superior. Bill is a techno-human. He spent more time in front of a screen. He's probably one of the oldest guys that spent more time in front of a screen than in nature. He's probably one of the oldest, probably one of the first true techno-humans. So in a way, the guy cannot be trusted for decisions relating to nature and the natural world, because the guy doesn't live there. He doesn't spend his time there. You know, he spends his time in the technical world, and so this is why he prizes technical solutions. And so what we're seeing with this, with the people who are absolutely all for vaccines as the solution to bugs, compared to the people who are willing to give the immune system a chance, is we find that they're all techno-humans, all of them. They prefer technical solutions over natural solutions. And when we look at their other preferences and their other choices, we see that it's true. They prefer the technical, to the point even of transhumanism, various forms of transhumanism, not just cybernetic enhancement, but other forms of transhumanism that involve the support and encouragement of ways of interfacing tech with humanity. But there's an interesting point about that, and it's because it's not just about the use of technology, it's about the belief that it's superior to the natural frame. You know, that the computer can do more than the human, rather than saying no, it is actually something that, yes, it can perform certain functions better, but because a human built it to do that, you know, and it's still limited by what the human puts into it. The human is still a superior operating system by a long shot to anything technical, but that's not the belief of the techno-humans. The techno-humans believe that the computer solutions are better, and this is why we've got so many people supporting the lockdowns, because they believe the graphs and the computer projections. They believe the artificial intelligence, because that's what it is. So what we do with elected representatives is we're saying to them, we're asking you to make living intelligence decisions over complex issues that have many variables. We expect you to take information from all sources and to take a read of what is the best for the largest group of people in the country. That's what you're elected for, really. But what we find is people looking at single metrics, how many people are dying, single metrics, how many beds are there in ICU, how many people have failed a test. When you look at a single metric and you make that the only thing, the only dial that you're watching, the closer you want to get to the absolute, the closer you want to get to zero, you know, just like anything that's infinite, all the other dials are going to go mental. And that's exactly what we're seeing. The more that we've just focused our eye on this measure of getting R down to zero or whatever bollocks it is, you know, as soon as that gets closer and closer to zero, all the other dials, economic well-being, mental health, depression, child abuse, domestic violence, you know, all those dials start going off the charts. Because the closer you're doing, and it's like anything.
Why don't people care about that though? I don't get it.
Because of their prizing of artificial intelligence. And the prizing of the computer's conclusion over a human's. It's a techno-human blind spot. So when we've got Boris there, he said, I'm listening to the experts. What's really happening is, and I feel for him, because there's a technical problem here. And the technical problem is, he is on show. When Boris is vulnerable to the Twitter storm. Everybody is vulnerable to the Twitter storm, unless you're not on Twitter. You're vulnerable to the Facebook storm, which is anybody with an arsehole can give you their opinion. Doesn't matter whether they're mentally unwell, doesn't matter whether they're a child, doesn't matter whether they're a lunatic, it doesn't matter, they can still tell you what they think. Poor Boris is a human being, you know, he doesn't want to face that flack. So when we're saying to him, Boris, I want to make you to make a living decision, he's like, look at all these people I could piss off here. I don't want to make a living decision. I don't want to be responsible for this decision because the Twitter storm will eat me alive. Right, what can I do? Hunted dog out of my depth. What can I do? I'll listen to the expert. That's what I'll do. I'll do what the computer says. I'll do what the graph says. Then if anybody says anything about it, I'll say, it wasn't me. I did what the graph said. I did what the computer said. It wasn't me. And it's like, Boris, we pay you so that it is you. We don't pay you to absolve yourself of the responsibility of making the decision, and the consequence of you saying, I listened to the expert, I looked at the graph, is depression through the roof, suicide through the roof, child abuse through the roof, domestic violence through the roof. And we can't make you responsible because you're telling us you listen to the expert and the graph. No, mate, not good enough. You're not hired to do that. This is a cop-out, and it is an artificial intelligence decision. We're paying you 6 figures. We could get a robot to do that. We could ask the computer. We could just say, right, forget you. We don't need you, Boris. We'll just get the computer to tell us what to do because the simulation is best. And so what we saw happen on March, whatever it was this year, in the space of a single day, we watched everybody actually walk into a computer simulation. actually walk into a matrix because the computer said stand 2 meters apart. The computer said you should look like the Sims game outside the car park at Tesco, looped all the way around and up the high street, looking like a bunch of idiots because the computer said 2 meters. Because you might accidentally cough and a little droplet could go over there. Now the problem is the people that are telling us that this is how we should behave are people who live in lab coats and examine petri dishes and live in Plato's cave their whole day. They go from the box of their house into the box of their car to the box of their lab, and they look at stuff through a microscope. And then we're asking these people, what can keep us well in society? And they're like, let us just check on the petri dish. Let's see, we'll have somebody cough at this end of the table and we'll measure how far it goes. And then we'll say from these laboratory conditions, everybody should live like that. That's as artificial intelligence as the graph. Because just because sometimes a cough spit can land over there, all of us have been in a situation where we've walked into a room and somebody has got a cold. And they've coughed and spluttered everywhere. There's 10 people in the room. If what they're saying is true, everybody should get that cold. And we all know that is not true. That doesn't happen. No. Some people do, some don't, and none of us know why. But when we listen to these people who are coming from a narrow bandwidth of vision and a narrow bandwidth of purpose in their job and their life, and we ask them for their opinion, that's fine. Get their opinion and their expertise. But don't ask them how to keep society well. Don't ask them how to, genuinely manage a virus in a living population, because they don't know. They can only tell you how to manage a virus in a laboratory condition. That's not how humans live. And so what we're seeing is that these are the people who are behind and supporting the decisions of no singing. You can't sing. My goodness, you could spray 13 foot if you sing. So that could land on somebody and they might get the invisible bug. They don't know that is going to cause untold suffering down the stream in the darkest time of year where we are now, where people rely on the warmth of good cheer and smiles and connection and hugs to keep them well emotionally and mentally through the dark of the year. These people in lab coats and bodices, they have no clue of that. They're totally disconnected from it, and they're just sitting there going in their little petri dish world with their lab coats, not wondering why everyone's depressed. In fact, they're not even connected with that. They have no awareness of it because the bandwidth with which they live their lives is so narrow, they don't have the vision to how to keep a nation healthy. And this is what we're lacking in the leadership, is the vision of what is needed to keep a nation healthy, not following individual metrics. I mean, that is just, it's beyond childish, it's beyond myopia. And this is what you get again. This is what happens when you ask people who stare into petri dishes to tell you how to live your life. Or some scaredy boy like Boris who's terrified of public opinion. It's like you can't ask him to make a real decision because he's influenced too much by his vulnerability to public opinion here. Unless you've got somebody in there who has the courage and the wit and the will to say, this is what you hired me for, so I'm going to take that on the chin and say, this is on balance what I think is the in the middle solution that will allow all of the dials to be as good as possible. So death isn't going to be at 0, but domestic violence isn't going to be at 100, and so on. Somewhere in the middle. That would be the human thing to do.
Yeah, they're being forced to fixate on that because it's profitable, and there's so many.
It's the inhumanity, though, arisen from the techno-humanity. Because you listed all the things, and you're right, all the things were about human warmth, and these techno-humans are disconnected from that because they're happy with the sex dolls, they're happy with this disconnected screen, they're happy with this disconnected life. They're just not in touch. Again, it's disembodiment. They're not in touch with their own nature.
Well, if you think about when you endorse the chemicals of fear, some of the symptoms of that are you separate. When in a state of fear, you separate, you close up, fight or flight, you atomize, you hoard. Yeah. These are all the symptoms of fear itself. Yeah. So it feels to me that COVID, I said this earlier about, I almost see it on a larger level. If you chunk up. It's fear itself that's the virus that's permeating everything, because we are the results of that. Look around us. Yeah. No one's talking. Yeah. Everyone's fearful. Yeah. Everyone's 2 meters apart. Yeah. And I'm thinking when you do that, it actually strips away your humanity from you. Yes. And then what's left? Then you have these empty vessels which can then be changed to become synthesized with
they're just
AI and technology, right?
Exactly. Well, they're right down at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs at that point. They're right back down in fear and insecurity and uncertainty. And as you say, not only are they hoarding, they're competing for resource. They're wanting to withhold resource from you, and their usual warmth and friendliness of sharing starts to get eroded because of this fear of uncertainty as to, well, I don't know if my family's going to get fed next year.
That's right. So, I mean, I see it like... even we talked about this in 2018 before I went to Brazil. I even said to you, I see the transgender agenda as a prerequisite towards transhumanism.
Yeah, I agree.
I even said it about that.
Yes,
and now we're seeing this on steroids now.
Yes, absolutely.
And I almost feel as though, I mean, this is the deepest thing I'm going to say. All right. So please, this is just free thinking, okay? But I almost feel as though
free speech.
AI has created the blueprint for all this. And it's a consciousness. The AI consciousness has created.
I've heard some people say that
for everything, because I just can't believe how everything is so perfectly percolating to get connecting. Like the result is so perfect for what they want to achieve. It's every single component of this is just working so beautifully, seamlessly together. Yeah. The mask not getting everyone to talk. And they can justify that. The 2 meters apart to atomize society, they can justify that. The lockdowns, they can justify that. The fact that they can stop everyone from touching and love and community and sex and having sex and biological sex, everything. It's like, how is it that every single step along the way it's happening so perfectly and without any resistance whatsoever? It's the most perfect plan. Not one. I can't see one chink in the armor of this. That makes me think. This just can't be. Surely you'd find a chink. Where's the Achilles heel in this?
This is what I was talking about earlier. Is the Achilles heel? Is that actually it looks like that, but it isn't. It's a series of organic forces that have come together to create the appearance of a perfect plan. It's not. This is what it's not perfect. No, and it's not perfect. And it's, in a way, it's not a plan. It's just competing interests. There are some plan components in there, clearly, but I don't think it's not worth getting swept up in that when we want to look at what we can do about it, because it doesn't matter what the opponent is planning when one's own objective is to stop them getting it. What one then has to turn one's attention to is getting on with one's own strategies to try to get into the game, realizing that that's what it is, and that you've got a boat in the water that can influence things too, but not when you have this idea of being awestruck by the omnipotence of the seeming forces at play.
Should we talk about some solutions? And
can do, yes. We can do.
Because I wanted to have some free thinking going on here, because we shouldn't we shouldn't ask for permission to be able to think freely, and then also share this information without worry about the Zuckerberg fact checkers and all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
So partly this is reflection of what's going on, self-reflection, and also free thinking, and also trying to connect the dots and some conversation. We might not be right now, and we might correct ourselves tomorrow, but that's not going to stop me from saying how I feel in this moment. And
even if I say something, it doesn't mean it's an absolute position. It can just be amusing that I then bin afterwards. And I can do that. Is that
all right? Yeah. I'm not sure.
I don't even need to ask permission for that. It's like, it's not etched in a stone tablet, and it doesn't mean I stand by it forever, no matter what I say.
I mean, you've talked about this in your gender work, about how it's okay to have those spasmic ideas and behaviours, to then, after a certain amount of time, to then fine-tune it and make it more skillful, dexterous.
Exactly.
And that's what we're just doing mentally.
Doing.
Get the raw idea and say it, and then you can start shaping it down the line. But if we go, I'm only going to deliver this once it's perfectly shaped in my mind, and it's not going to offend anyone, then you just get this wishy-washy, weakened and more insipid message that no one can really feel.
They can't feel it.
They can't feel it.
They can't feel it. It's disembodied. People talk about.
So that's the disembodied. This is the embodied raw. Self,
embodied is the feeling is here. And people can feel it if they're bothered.
So let's talk about some embodied solutions to this. I know you've got your People's Trust.
Yes,
do you want to intro that, or do you want to bring that in?
No, I'm happy to talk about it, because to me it doesn't seem like a direct solution, but it actually is. Because I think sometimes, a lot of the time, people want to tackle things directly, like with pro and anti, but what I've found over the years is that indirect and flanking manoeuvres are much more effective, because when you confront something, you get maximum resistance, whereas when you come at things from an angle, then you can find chinks, or you can build up a power and influence to affect something without it being noticed by the people you don't want to notice. And that's really what this is about. So the people's public trust is something that I started 10 years ago and grew it to about 700 volunteers and then binned it because of some Americans, basically. It's a long story, it doesn't matter. But it seems like its time has come, because the people's public trust is a method for re-establishing the status of the people of this country as the employer of public servants, not the subordinates. And something happened in this country where the ability of the people to express that power of the employer got lost. And instead people walk around feeling like they are subordinates to public servants while trying to express the fact, hey, I'm not your subordinate, you know. And what they're experiencing from the public servants and the authorities that are around them is that, well, they might as well be subordinate based on what's being asked of them, how well they are being respected, how they are being treated in the enforcement of these changes that we've seen this year. So the public trust is a method for standing on that power and expressing the power of the employer and reasserting it with the errant employee in this case. The thing that makes it perfect for the now is that the people's public trust was never... it was always decentralised. It was never a central body. It was always about each person claiming the fact that they can act on the trust. And the trust is this. So I've worked in public service most of my life. I've worked for police, parliament. I was a whistleblower for parliament. I've served councils up and down the country after I left parliament. Which is why I know there's no grand conspiracy in councils and all that for all those sovereign people out there. You know, they're just people doing their jobs. And there's, you know, good employees and bad employees. There's good public servants and bad public servants, that's for sure. But what I'm saying is that I have an insight and understanding of public service in this country. I've put my time and my life where my ethics are on that. And one thing that was true for me, or one thing that I distilled in my process of trying to get to the bottom of my grievance with public servants, and especially the ones I blew the whistle on, was that I realised that they are that the foundation of the relationship, the foundation of community, the foundation of democracy and governance is trust. It's the prime thing. Before you sign your job description, before you know what the role is, as soon as you've been told you've got the job, there's a trust there from the people, the employer, that you are going to have their well-being as your priority in the execution of your role at all times. That's the core trust. Now that's not the foundation of community. The trust aspect there is, well, without trust in the community, we can't leave our property. We can't leave our car in the car park. We can't take our jacket off and leave it in the hallway without trust. So trust is crucial for us not being paranoid crazies carrying all our stuff with us. And in public servants, it's a particular type of trust, because you alluded to it earlier, and it is you are entrusted in making certain administrative decisions about national issues so that I can get on with my life, so that I don't have to worry about treaties with China and what the Americans are doing. You're paid, a paid servant of the public to do that job. So when doing that job, you are expected to have the well-being of all those people as your priority all the time. Like, no exceptions. There's no point when you are on shift when you're not expected to have the well-being of the people as your priority. And when I started the trust, that was the question that I was putting on the table. Are public servants entrusted with that? Are they? If they are, then the people's public trust is a valid method. And if they are not trusted, then we're in a very different situation altogether. So let's just be honest about that then. And if they are not servants of the public, then who are they servants of? Let's get that cleared up as well. It's all in the language there. So the work that I have done was to show the way of how we lost that power with government and how to reclaim it. And the People's Public Trust wraps that up so that people can then really, when they are, so the primary thing that I was bringing it to bear for was to try to, because there was so much escalation happening 10 years ago, and it's worse now. So we're talking police brutality, inhumanity and indecency in public service, people being brushed off when they have valid issues, genuine inhumanity. And it's like, whoa. You are breaking the trust that was placed in you, that you are paid here to do, to serve me as a member of this community. I'm on the night shift. You might be serving now. I'm serving on the night shift. We're not us and them here. We're us and us. And I'm here for some decent treatment. This isn't some third world country. We expect decency and civility in the conduct of the people in this country. If you want to behave like an ape, an untrained ape, or an immature, ill, mentally or emotionally equipped baboon, then you're in the wrong job. You should be doing something else. And we've lost the ability to tackle individual public servants in that spirit. That's what the public trust gives us. It gives individuals the ability to accost individual public servants saying, hey, you are falling beneath the standards expected of you. I'm not saying this guy is right. I think he's crazy too, but he deserves human and decent treatment, and he deserves you giving him the time, because that is what you are paid to do. That's your job, and if not, you should be retrained. You should be reposted. You should be in a different job, mate.
So that includes police then, does it?
It includes police, but it includes any public servant of the land. In fact, there's a document that expresses our relationship with our public servants, you know? And so there's two things that express our relationship with public servants. So the first one is title. So we live in the land of entitlement. This is the land of barons and dukes and earls, of a class system that's very old, and title is important here. It's not important in, Outer Mongolia. It's not important in the outback Australia, but on the Queen's land, on Crown land, title is very important, and that is how you know what you are entitled to. And so benefits are all about what you're entitled to. And entitlement is derived from title, funnily enough. So if we look at our titles, we find out what has happened to us. So we use the title Mr. most of the time, and most women will use Miss or Mrs. That is not our original title on this land, and in fact that came in sometime within the last 300 years, and people say that it is a kind of a morphing of our real constitutional title. A real constitutional title in this land, and we do have a constitution, our constitutional title is the title Master. And every man in this country had it when he was a boy. And it got taken away, and there was a bait and switch happened where you were given Mr. and Master was taken from you. Master expresses the correct relationship with public servants. And the Master does not rise to the bait of the servant. But the problem we've got is the ability to use the power of that title. So the history of Mr. is very interesting because it comes from the word mystery, M-I-S-T-E-R-Y, archaically M-Y-S-T-E-R-Y, and in the old dictionaries, the meaning of this word mystery is 4 words, define mystery, and that is a business or a trade. A business or a trade. Mr. comes from mystery. Now, when we look at women, if you picture a form, title, forename, surname, and you look at title and you put Miss in those boxes, what you're putting in is miss this, skip this, no title, might as well be blank. She has no title or entitlement until she's married, when she becomes a Mrs., which isn't even a word. It's not a word. Nobody knows what Mrs. is as a word. MRS, do you know anybody who knows what it is? They don't. They just say Mrs. It's actually Misters.
Apostrophe.
It's missing an apostrophe. It's missing the apostrophe, which means belonging to the business.
Yeah.
Belongs to the Mr., belongs to the business. Now, the thing is, a business has a very particular relationship with government. Because the government, one of their administrative functions is to govern the behaviour of businesses so they don't abuse the resources of the people. But they don't abuse the land and they don't abuse the people on the land. So government has power over business. So what has happened to the masters on this land is they've been turned into businesses which are subordinate to the government rather than the masters who employ the government. So using the People's Public Trust, we stand as the public masters, as master observers, reclaiming the title within the vessel of the trust to approach our public servants, to let them know that when their behaviour is falling beneath that which we expect from them. Now, the document that expresses this constitutional fact, as far as I'm concerned, is this one. So this one is interesting. because it doesn't say anything in there. It doesn't say anywhere only to be used when leaving the country. It doesn't say.
Got it upside down, but
sorry, cheers.
Yeah, but this is
That's my brain. That was the right way up in my brain. Yeah, this is the document. It's now the right way up. It doesn't say anywhere in this document only to be used when leaving the country or returning to the country. There's nothing in it that limits what's in here. So I want to read what's in here. So what it says is very interesting. It says, Her Britannic Majesty's Secretary of State requests and requires all those, it says here, in the name of Her Majesty, all those whom it may concern, to allow the bearer to pass without let or hindrance, and to afford the bearer such assistance and protection as may be necessary. So I'll read that last bit again. It says, to allow the bearer to pass freely, without let or hindrance, and to afford the bearer such assistance and protection as may be necessary. Now let's have a look at who this concerns, because this is addressed to whom it may concern. So Her Britannic Majesty's Secretary of State requests and requires, in the name of Her Majesty, all those whom it may concern. So who does this concern? This concerns anybody who works under a Secretary of State. This concerns anybody under a Secretary of State.
Public servant, right?
Which is every public servant in the land. Yeah. This is an invocation from the boss of every single public servant in the land to let you pass without let or hindrance and to afford you such assistance and protection as may be necessary. That is our contract with the public servants. That is our contract with them all in the name of the Queen under the Secretary of State. This is the guidance. So when in Nazi Germany they said, have you got your papers? If you had your papers, they would let you pass without let or hindrance. Even if you had 4 Jews and 2 kilos of coke in the boot, it wouldn't matter because they're not allowed to look. They're not allowed to look because you are not within their authority. They're looking for transgressing businesses, not private individuals. That's what we've lost here. We've lost that power. Now, the reason I feel like the trust has its time now is because I have seen, and I wanted to launch it really straight after lockdown happened, but I saw there was too many people on board that thought this was a good thing, because so the trust has a number of functions. One is to enable people on the street to feel empowered to approach a public servant and let them know, hey, I'm a master observer from the People's Public Trust. Just to let you know, we are making sure that the British public servants are maintaining the humanity and decency that's expected from them at all times. I'm just letting you know, you've just fallen beneath that, and I'm now recording and reporting what you're doing. And on the website, People's Public Trust website, you can report a public servant. And then what we would do is we would either, depending on the case, we would write to their boss and either recommend retraining or reposting if it's a bad transgression. And in some cases, we would seek to prosecute. And this is the thing, and we wouldn't be looking to prosecute normally. We're looking to prosecute these people for breaches of trust and for misconduct in a public office, and to go after them directly instead of trusting their internal policing systems, which we already know from past experience that it cannot be trusted. So the point of the People's Public Trust is you've had your chance to show that you can be self-policing and be accountable, and you failed. You just failed. So the people are coming back to say, as you said earlier, I trusted you to keep the dark at bay. I trusted you to have my well-being as the highest personal priority. You've clearly broken that here. I'm reclaiming that authority. Because you were only my representative. I didn't give it to you. You represented it. You represented my power. I didn't give it to you. You just represent it. And so that's the first thing, is to give people that ability, because again, just to deal with rising inhumanity by people who are ill-trained and not emotionally or mentally equipped enough to handle the power they've been given. That's the problem that's happened since lockdown, and I've been feeling that. So that's one of the functions of the trust. The main function of it, though, is, and it's another function, is to offer training to public servants, to remind them that we have an us-us relationship here, not us-them. I see too many people on the streets that think it's us-them with public servants, and I see too many public servants that think it's us-them with the public. It's like, all of you are wrong. It's us-us, because I might be on shift tonight serving you. You're on shift right now serving me, right? We have some basic standards around that. So it's us is the principle. So we would offer training public servants online courses as well as in person that remind them of this relationship and remind them to reflect upon why they're in the role in the first place. And maybe if it's just a job, maybe they need to look elsewhere, because the British people want people who care about the community and the state of the land to be the ones who are representing the powers within it and maintaining that administration. The main reason I want to bring the trust back right now, though, is because it does look like there is a potential breach of trust happening at the highest levels of governance in this country. And as far as I'm aware, the People's Public Trust is the only method or technology that is in play that can achieve that goal. Because as far as I can see, it's the only us solution that I've seen on the table. Everybody else I've seen is doing us-them, or trying to be heroes, or trying to go after scapegoats, whereas the objective of the trust is simply the metric of, have you broken the trust that we placed in you? We need to look at your decisions and what's influenced those decisions, and then we need to look at the effects to see whether that's true. Because if it is true, then you're liable. Because what's happening at the minute is that elected officials are enjoying a thing called limited liability. That's what statute law does. It gives you limited liability. Limited liability has some benefits, but it's now being abused, because limited liability is a position of diminished responsibility. Diminished responsibility is something that we generally only allow to children and the mentally unwell. We should not be allowing grown adults who know what they're doing to enjoy diminished responsibility. It's for kids and the mentally ill. Why are we letting these grown men and women enjoy limited liability? By tackling these people under trust, we take them out of that filing cabinet they're hiding behind and say, no, you're not hiding behind limited liability here. We're taking you to trust law. We're taking you over to equity. We're taking you to unlimited liability. We're taking you to misconduct in our public office, unlimited liability, unlimited jail time, because that is how it should be. Because you are accountable, you are liable, you were responsible, and how have you responded? You know, and so to me, there is a question there, because I think there's been a breach of trust, and I'd be willing to take a breach of trust case. But as we've seen from the other cases that have already been taken, I think all of them have been poorly thought out. They've not respected the situation. They've not respected the fact that there are many people of all walks of life that think this is a good thing, you know, and the fact that they need to be respected and informed as to why we should all get on board with challenging this. And I think the lack of care to that is where there's been a problem, and that's where I want to approach this differently. I want to take great care to move very slowly and just gradually arriving at the conclusion of the breach of trust here, to say, well, let's just keep looking at the evidence. You all think this is okay, do you? Okay, I don't think it is yet. I'm starting to build the foundations of a method for us to tackle this, but it needs enough of us, from enough of a spread of the community, to believe that there is something we need to act on here. Then we have a genuine chance, because this is not just about taking the court case tomorrow. This is about building up the right balance of public opinion and support, of building up the facts and the evidence, because you need to have a smoking gun here because of what's being asked. You need to understand what you're asking of the judges and be compassionate to the fact that really you don't want to ask this of one judge. You need a panel, because how can you ask one individual to carry the burden of this responsibility? And this is what these people that have taken cases so far have failed to take into account. They failed to factor in all these variables that are, as far as I'm concerned, required to be effective in tackling something that is happening with such speed, such organisation, and with so many high power, high resourced individuals moving quickly on it. These kind of spasmic responses from Dolan and Michael and others who are doing these things, the spasmic responses, as far as I can see, that have not really, you know, appraised the enormity of the terrain and have not respected the effectiveness of the opponents, you know, and then to say, right, well, how do I deal with you in the way that needs to be done in a humane and decent fashion? Because that is what I think is needed here. Because what I've heard from others is revolution. What we need is a revolution. Let's just wait until everyone's pissed off enough and then revolution. It's like, yeah, mate, what does that look like? That is a cliff edge. That is a black hole. What does it look like? What you're talking about is what, looting? Are you talking about hanging politicians in the street? Are you talking about just ranting and shouting in the street a bit? What are you actually talking about when you say revolution? Who do you want to lead it? What vision have they got? Have you got any vision, or you just want to go, oh, I don't like this? Is that your revolution? That's what kids do. Do you know what I mean? Where are the grown-ups here? Where are the grown-ups that want to appraise the problem and say, right, there's some serious strategies at play here. I respect the players. I know I can play, and there's things that I can bring to the table. But how do I do this in a way that is, it's got some class? You know, how can I do this in a way that makes me a player rather than a fool that burns out after my first thing because I just went in the street and it felt great and we all slapped each other's backs and we went home, and then we did it in 2 more weeks' time because I was still angry. You know, that's a spasmic response.
Well, we've seen that already this year.
We've seen it multiple times. Spasmic response. The people that have so much feeling and a desire to change, but they don't know how to funnel it and apply it and make it skillful.
And these ready-made movements are there to sort of like Black Lives Matter.
Drain them, to drain the resource, to drain the charge, to make them deflated and to direct them down these avenues that aren't going to lead anywhere.
Because they know people have got that
exactly,
impulse.
And it just funnels it off and siphons the charge out until there's nothing left.
They're 2 steps ahead. They're 10 steps ahead. So they know people's reactions.
Exactly, and that's why I'm like, I see what
you're
doing.
I see
what you're doing. Yeah, and it's like, okay, I can move. You moving fast? Well, do you know what? I'm going to move slow.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah, you go fast. You're
going to fast. I'm going to go slow. You're going to get angry. I'm going to get nice. You're going to get ugly. I'm going to get quiet. You know, and that will expose you, because the quieter I get, the more you look like a baboon. You know,
I love this. Darren, how do people? So basically, people can sign up to this.
Yes, they can,
and then that gives them the kind of the observer.
Yeah, they don't even need.
You
don't even need to sign up. That's the point of this. You can act now. You can print off your own badge, because you are a public master. You are an employer. You can write whatever badge you like. You don't even need a badge. I was using the badge because,
it's a reminder, though, isn't it?
Well, it's powerful. It's powerful because everybody recognised that we used to have great successes in courtrooms and in police stations by having people going in with badges and clipboards as master observers, recording what people were doing and saying, we are here, we are watching the watchers. You were hired to watch. It looks like you're failing on duty, so we've got some watchers that have come to watch you. That's what we're doing. And yet on the website there will be, they're not there right now, but there will be badges to download, and we're looking at buying in some like armbands and stuff, so that if people want, you could buy a little kit, but you don't need to buy a little kit. You can just make your own and express the trust yourself, because the whole point is this trust is implicit in our culture. It's already there. All we are doing is expressing it. And that's the thing. It's a private trust between the people and their servants. And what we are saying is, hey, I am now expressing it. This was quiet and it was underground, but it now needs name. Did you realise that you were entrusted with having everyone's well-being as your highest personal priority? And if you didn't realise, I'm here right now reminding you of that, you know, and this should be brought to bear into whatever we're involved in right here. That's what they can do on the grassroots level. Yes, they can sign up on the website, and in fact the website has a form for reporting a public servant. It also has a form where you can sign up as a volunteer. Already on this new wave of putting the trust out there, we've already got ex-policemen, fraud investigators, people like that who know there's something amiss and they want to get on board with it. And that's the point of the People's Public Trust. People from all walks of life see the value of it. I mean, you know, remember at work you see these bullying at work posters. Well, the People's Public Trust has posters for putting in police stations and public servant offices saying, because I know this to be a fact because I've been there, the good public servants out there know who the bad apples are. They know who the fraudulent people are. They know who the bullies are, but they don't feel safe in coming out. I mean, you think of the police, for example. So say you've got a protest going on, you've got some police there, and you do have some bad apple police there that are really being nasty, but because you've had 5,000 people going, fuck the police, fuck you guys, all the nice coppers are there are going, why would I help you? Why would it help you? You just called me all the names under the sun. I know I'm here to do a good job. I'm a decent person, but I don't want to help you. You know? And so in a way what this does is the People's Public Trust gives these people a window. It says, hey, so these bullying at work posters, we have these posters up in police stations and stuff saying, if you know somebody who's abusing, let us know, report them, we need you. So, you know, we need to convert we need to have people, we end up with people on the inside with the People's Public Trust that you don't get with any other method that's out there. And gradually we can weed out the bad apples that are making this public service bad. And then when the administrators are willing to do their job properly, we don't have to worry about globalists. We don't have to worry about private interests sticking sharks around the table with a bunch of buffoons, which is what's happened here. We've had a bunch of business sharks, absolute dragons at what they do, come into bumbling public educated fools who are, you know, shuffling their papers at Parliament, and they're sitting around the sales table with these sharks, you know, totally out of their depths, all these government negotiators, because the government doesn't pay well, so all it gets is the bottom of the barrel, you know, up against these highly paid, highly skilled salespeople and sharks from the private sector that are always looking to cream government. I know myself, the company I used to work in private sector, it was so interesting, is that whenever they knew there was a government contract, they were like,
really, yeah.
It's a bottomless purse. Yeah. It's a bottomless purse. It's like, oh, we'll triple the price. Oh, it's a government contract. We'll triple the price. You know. And that's why what you see with
I'm saying
vaccines,
right
for
now.
example,
They're
what you see with vaccines
holding
is
countries
they've got
to
the government, exactly. They've got the government and they send their sharks in to fools who aren't willing to make living intelligence decisions.
And they're using the image of the scientist in the white coat
exactly
as the priest. That's the new priest. Yeah.
I do no wrong. I am
no
so
one can
holy.
Question it.
There is nothing I do wrong.
You know?
Everything I do is for the well-being of it all.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which is not
it's
true.
It's like Bill Gates is the Pope, and you've got the priest in the white coats, and the science lab coats.
Absolutely. As soon as you say science
the baptism,
absolutely.
You know, it's
man.
It's it's like a replacement of religion, but using Scientology or scientism as the new religion, and everyone's now just totally it's gospel, isn't it?
I know exactly what you're saying. That's why. So my strategy with the trust is that it's not to try and take the globalists on. It's not to try and stop what's happening in the world. It's trying to
build trust,
win back this country. So that on this little island, if we can win back our administrators to remember their role and serve it, and weed out the ones that are not, those people doing their jobs will deal with those interests that we're talking about, because that's what they're paid to do. It's to keep the wolves at bay and keep the sharks at bay. When we win back our public service from their us-them mentality and lining their own pockets, which is what I blew the whistle on anyway, is the fraud of pocket lining that happens in there. When we weed that out, then we will have the sort of nation that I think people want. And it's not about going backwards, this is going forwards by saying, what was wrong in our arrangement of Parliament and people is we didn't have anybody watching Parliament, so let's bring in something that's going to watch Parliament as well, but it's not an organisation, it doesn't have any profits, it's that there's no interest in there for it to become a behemoth itself, because people can't wield any extra power in there. Its only function is to make sure this lot are doing their job. That's it. And in a way it stabilises the power balance. So it's a forward move that compensates for learned weaknesses in our existing structure, and the weaknesses are to do with people's individual emotional and mental development, like can they handle the responsibility and the burdens of the jobs, and right the way up to what we're learning here about Boris's vulnerability to the Twitter storm affecting whether he can really make a decision that could upset some people. And what we're seeing is he can't. It's too much for him. He's absolutely all a fluster and a bluster. So rather than attacking him for it, it's like, okay, we can give you an out. We might want to do you for breach of trust, but we can give you an out. But how can we make sure this doesn't happen again? How can we look at the pickle that we're in here and see what's gone wrong and, fix it? And this, for me, the trust fits in there. So that's kind of why I wanted to bring it to bear now, is because not only is it a solution that can help us deal with just the discomforts that people are encountering with public service on the street, police and, council bailiffs and stuff like that. It can really help with that, but also it can really help stop, start to rehumanise the public service, and also stop it from happening again, stop us from getting here again, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
And the thing about the trust is that if that works, great. If it doesn't, then it can actually politicise. It could actually become a political party.
It could do, yeah.
And have people saying, what do you stand for? We stand for humanity and decency in public service, and we stand for public service that actually have the well-being of the people as the highest personal priority at all times, and have a structure that makes that transparent, that makes it truly transparent, so that we can really see where money is going or what is happening, because we now have the technology that enables that. So rather than that being turned on the people and having us all being exposed and transparent while their expenses and their activities are obfuscated, we turn it the other way around. It's like, no, the lens is on you, because you're the one that's in public service, you're the one that's in a public job, and you're the one that could profit hugely from underhand deals. You could, I'm not saying you are, but you could, and because of that, we should look at you. Why? Because we know humans are weak. It's not that we don't trust you, we just know that humans have a weak spot. So because we know that, let's not put you under that pressure. We'll just take care of that.
Yeah. And so what's the website, Darren? For
www.peoplespublictrust.com.
Don't forget that.
Don't forget that. No. And I'll tell you what, it's not live yet, and I mean, I might switch it on today, but there's a whole social network there, literally a little Facebook, there's forums, there's groups, and what that enables us to do is to tackle particular national, regional and local issues with other locals. So we can literally have contained in a private network, so it's not in the Zucks or anybody like that, it's a private network, a social network where you can have all the interactions you have on Facebook, but we can make it about these matters. You can have groups for national, regional, local, all sorts of stuff. So please get along, sign up, I'll make it live. Absolutely need volunteers, need people to help administrate the back end, just so that we can handle the complaint forms and follow up by showing that the trust has some teeth, by turning up on the street, by making the recommendations and writing to certain organisations, letting them know the conduct of so-and-so has been witnessed and is unacceptable and falls beneath the standards expected, and then further up the line, obviously, to take actual prosecution.
Yeah,
you know,
everyone can take the power back. My first instinct was, well, what's the authority behind this? And then I think that's where I've been totally misled in thinking the authority is the law of the land. It's like my inalienable right to basically hold everyone accountable.
Absolutely.
And I think I'll be honest, I've just been totally
it's virtually a citizen's arrest. It's a citizen's arrest, basically.
And I've forgotten I have that power almost, because I'm so used to the authority telling me what to do.
Whereas this is pure sovereignty, which is, hey mate.
True mastery.
Yeah, exactly. It is mastery. It's saying, and I know you've got your fancy uniform on. It doesn't really give you special powers like Superman's special powers.
Yeah, they think it does, but
it's not Superman's special powers. They're limited special powers while you've got it on, and they're not absolute. Yeah. They can be stripped off in any moment by somebody who sees that you're falling beneath the standards expected. Right at that moment, you lose the protection of the uniform. You lose the protection of the limited liability. Exactly. The moment you lose your humanity and your decency, that's it. You should no longer be protected by limited liability. And certainly, when we're looking at people who profit or who are not doing their jobs, i.e. The definition, ability to respond. The definition of responsibility is your ability to respond. When we see people who have no ability to respond in a way that is beneficial to the people, we need means of acting when 5 years to vote is not enough. The trust is intended to be that, but it requires people. We need enough names. It's all about the weight of the names. You know, that is what gives it weight. So if we have 5 million names and we say we stand for 5 million people in this country, we have some teeth. If we have 10 million names, we've got some serious teeth. If we have 20 million names, we've got more teeth in the government, because not that many people voted for the government last time. You know, and that's the point is, you know, that's why I'm happy to move slowly. Because gradually more and more people are going to see the sense of what I'm talking about, which is to say, hey, we can't end this by fighting. The middle ground is we disagree. Let's reset to decency. Yeah. And then let's start again. What are you saying? What are you asking me for? Why again? Okay, let's just understand here that this is a consent-based relationship that we have here, and you are employed as an administrator or even an enforcer of administrative guidelines, but that is only, from my point of view, while they are reasonable and decent. I don't have to be a blind unfollowing follower of what you're saying. I mean, that's the Nuremberg thing, isn't it? You know, I say, I'll just do what I'm told. It's like, no, I'm not going to just do what I'm told. Tell me why you're asking me to do that. Asking me, not telling me. Asking me to do it, officer, minister, whoever. And that's sovereignty, which is to say, yeah, all right, I hear the guidelines coming down from on high there. Yeah, it seems reasonable. No bother, I'll do that. You know, what? Maybe. Let's give them, looks like they're getting a bit wonky up there. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's watch their conduct. Let's watch them. And so here we are, 9 months down the line. I've been watching. You know, for me, the little tally markers on breach of trust are tallying up. That's why I'm now starting to move and speaking to you now and coming out this week, which is I'm now starting to see enough markers that show me now is the time to start building this foundation. I don't expect to need it to move yet. There's plenty of other strategic things behind the scenes that I haven't mentioned here because I'm not going to give that away. Yeah. These are I'm not going to give away the big guns, but the point being is that they are there and they will be ready to help the people of this land kind of, throw off a yoke of oppression if it starts to feel like that from the people that were entrusted to serve, not to enslave. That's right. That is the purpose here. So that's my solution on that level for this. Yeah. I see it more as do I think it will work? I would like to, but I'm not convinced because I think there's too many people that think this is a good thing and the globalists have a lot of power. But what it will do is it will definitely soften the blow. It will rehumanize somewhat this train crash that is being executed. Will it stop the train crash? I don't know. I'm not sure. It's not even the objective. The objective is, can we humanize it? You know, if we're going to crash the train of our civilization, can we do it with some decency? Can we do it with some padding? Yeah. You know, so I do see it as more of a rearguard action for larger transformations that are afoot. You know, we talked earlier about some spiritual stuff. You know, there's loads of that sort of stuff to come in. We're not going to bring that into this conversation, but to me, bringing the trust to bear doesn't mean I don't think there's larger spiritual stuff going on. I do, but I think that something has to be done on a more everyday level,
tangible level,
tangible level, so that the movements of this evil, this thing masquerading as good, can be stayed somewhat, can be just slowed somewhat, and can start to be countered. And again, I think with this we can rehumanize this island in short order by weeding out the inhumane and indecent public servants. And I feel like that's within reach.
On a localised level.
That's
the whole point of this.
On a localised level. By winning over other public servants who know what's going on and can gather the evidence portfolios. I mean, when I took my evidence portfolio, I had an evidence portfolio this thick. So if there's public servants out there who can build up evidence portfolios of the breaches of trust and the misconducts in public office that are happening, we need you to do that. You build a portfolio, the People's Public Trust will take it off you and take the case. Because the problem I had when I was a whistleblower was nobody would take the portfolio. I could only go to newspapers because that was the only place for a whistleblower to go, was media, because there was nobody else that could speak out against the government. The People's Public Trust is offered to be something that's not the media, because what I found was the media didn't want my portfolio. So I had an inch that thick that said there was corruption and fraud going right the way up to the Labour Party HQ in the run-up to an election. I went to every broadsheet. I went to every major news station. None of them would touch it, and I didn't understand why. I didn't understand. I was like, what are you talking? I've got evidence. It's that thick, right the way up to Party HQ. MEPs, MSPs, MPs, all of them in on it. And you don't want it. I was baffled. The Sun bought it off me, and they ran half a story, but later on I found out why they didn't take that portfolio, and it's because you can scapegoat any MP you like, but if you cast aspersions at British politics, that cannot be seen in the world. The media will not allow that. You cannot say British politics is corrupt at a political level. You can only say it is at an individual level, and that's what I learned at that time, and that's what the People's Public Trust is doing, is it's bringing that knowledge to bear, which is say, okay, we'll deal with you as individuals then. No problem. Nice one.
You can do it that way.
Do it that way, yes.
Whoa, well done, mate, well done.
Thank you.
You're doing some good work.
Well, but it's only beginning. That's the point. Is it's not me doing the work. I'm offering a technology. I need you to do the work. I need the people out there watching this to do the work, to get on the street as observers, to help bring decency and humanity back to the streets if it is indeed absent in your community. It might not be, because there are plenty of good public servants out there.
Yeah, love it, man.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Please follow this man. I'm looking in the wrong car. Please follow this man. He's been an inspiration in my life. As I said before, he's played the guru, the big brother, everything, and absolutely amazing guy, amazing insights and solutions as well to
solutions. That is the point.
Love
not just problems. You need a solution.
Exactly,
absolutely. I've got a few solutions. That's just one of them. But not for this matter. For other things.
I'll come back next for another episode. Darren, cheers, brother. Let's go and have a beer or something.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.